If you feel like, why am I doing this? This isn't worth it. What is the point of creating because of the state of the world, because of your experience here? This message is for you, especially about creating children, creating business, creating anything. So there was once somebody that I knew years ago who told me that if she knew then what she knew now, she wouldn't have had children. And she said, if anything happens, I'm not only going to take them out, I'm going to take myself out before I ever let anything bad happen to them. And this was before it got all crazy on top of that. This was about a month ago. This was before Easter, okay? God reminded me of something that my soul came here to experience for me. And I took it to God that night and was like, I don't even really want that. I don't know why you and I or we thought I want that, but I'm sorry, I just don't want to do that anymore. And I was talking to God about this for hours. I woke up the next morning and the first thing that I saw when I opened my phone, it was a reel of a very young girl that her mother posted, a very young girl, and she was distraught and sobbing and saying, I want to go back home to my planet. I do not want to be here. I miss home. And of course, I knew why God was showing me this. I know a lot of you guys feel this way too. It was, it stayed on my mind for hours. Well, a few hours later this day, now keep in mind this is Sunday now. It was Saturday night that I had that conversation. Now it's Sunday. Then I get a vision in my head in a flash to go to a church that I once had to go to when I was helping somebody cross over. I had to go there for something. Of course, I hadn't been back to this church. After that, I was shown go there. So I went to this church and the chapel was closed. And I'm like, why did you have me come to this church and the chapel's closed? There's nobody there, no cars in the parking lot. It's a huge open space outdoors. Well, I look over and then I see why God had sent me here. And there's this tree with this statue underneath, and it's about angels who are protecting and praying over the unborn souls and children who don't make it here. And I knew why God was showing me this as well, because God will have me at times. This is part of the womb protection oil in a lot of my work. God will call me to pray over and to pray for unborn children with pregnant women, that for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it's to clear narcissistic ties or to come here with a clean slate or for protection. There's a lot of reasons God will call me to these people or call these people to me, which is a really important part of this message, because as I'm walking around this whole outside area, it's a really big outside church is the best way I can describe it. I'm going and looking at the mountains. I'm just taking everything in and what God's trying to show me here. So I see this nest on top of the door and I start filming it, and a bird flies into it right away. So I'm like, okay, this message is very alive. I'm still walking around, walking back and forth. And the other thing is before I left, God showed me to take a bottle of the Phoenix Panther oil, and I was shown not to use those oils. So the oils that I create for others, I can create oils for myself if I want, but the anointing oils, it was kind of like, don't get high on your own supply, so I don't use them. And God showed me that I need to bring a bottle with me, a new bottle of the Panther oil. And I didn't know if I was going to give it to somebody or something. I didn't know why God had me at the time or told me to bring it. But while I was there and standing in front of this tree, God was like, okay, now use the oil. When I start using the oil, God starts showing me even more. I work with the identity. I work in helping and getting to the core of the root. God was showing me things even more about myself, my titles, my positions, things that I just kind of felt like was leading up to, but didn't have this type of clarity on. It was incredibly powerful, which is so important to understand even what allowed this experience as well, because a lot of this was unconscious. And what is unconscious is also where a lot of black magic comes in. Black magic works by our thoughts, thinking, oh, it's not worth it. What's the point? It's always been bad. We're outnumbered. And because I brought it to the light and made it conscious that night before, this was all subconscious thoughts. I didn't even realize I didn't want to do what my soul one of the things my soul came here to experience, because I made it conscious and I brought it to the light, to God the night before, I had all of this revealed to me on top of that. This entire message and experience is about conscious creation, because God is saying everything that we have seen and why the world appears so dead now is also because a lot of that was created unconsciously. We didn't have conscious parents. Like, that girl's mother who posted that video is aware of what's happening. A lot of us didn't have that. There is a difference between creating a child made with love consciously and creating a child out of lust. And that is why God will also have me work with women and couples at times, and just getting women as well back on track with the cycle and your core cycle. For example, not having a C-section when you don't need one, when it's not required or necessary, if you're doing it for convenience. I made a whole video about this, so I'm not going to get deep into this, but this is what it comes down to get back on God's will. And that is part of the job. Just like as an intercessor, God's saying there are intercessors everywhere, just like the angels in, on that statue underneath the tree, that's saying the angels who pray for the unborn creations. I'm walking around this whole outside area and there's birds everywhere saying, there are angels everywhere that are going to come in at the time when you need it, even when it looks like there's nobody out there. Because a lot of these people as well that I get sent to or sent to me are from out of the country. I've never met them before. I might meet them that one time, maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times, and then I'll never see them again. And they're a lot of times in really high places, by the way. So don't be fooled in thinking that God doesn't also have people who are doing God's will in high places, and that is what an intercessor does. I have had so many clients and people who say, oh, my parents were religious, my dad prayed, my mom prayed, and it never worked. It doesn't matter if the prayer is not in God's will, and if you don't know your true soul's will. It's about aligning your soul's will with God's will. That is what an intercessor does, is prays on behalf of God's will to make that come into fruition. So when you look around the world and you're like, none of it worked before, all of it is dead, a lot of that was unconscious creation from the world, from our parents, from the past, but we have been in the tail of the dragon this entire time. And now we are going to start a new era of conscious creation. And I made the Conscious Love course probably a year ago now. That's all about the path to higher love and soulmates. It's a different world when we are creating consciously with people we love, but we just now left the tail of the dragon. So I'm walking around this church for probably 45 minutes at this point, just kind of taking in everything that God wants to show me. And I'm just standing there in front of this tree, and I notice after all of this time that there is a bird's nest in there with 3 birds in this nest. And this was also such an important part of this video. Everything that you came here to create is not only for your inner child, like that little girl in the beginning of the video, but it is for your soul family. Not everybody came here to create a family, and that's what this message is. If you came here to create a family, that means it's in your soul's will and it's in God's will, and that means that it is protected. If you didn't come here to create a family, you might not want to do that if it's outside of your will. What your creation is, it doesn't have to be children. What you came here to create, when it is aligned with God's will, is protected. So don't worry about what was not protected in the past in the world, in the land of the unconscious, because now you are conscious. You are more than conscious in what you are creating, and it is protected. All of this, the birds, the angels, the family of birds in the tree, you are doing it for your soul family. So don't get caught up in the thoughts that it's not worth it, nobody's going to get it because of what you see in the world, because that's not who you're doing it for. Your soul family is going to reap the benefits, and that's who God also wants you here for and needs you here for. That's what your soul came here to experience. There are things that your soul came here to experience that if you do those, you will leave here happy and fulfilled, because you did what your soul came here to do. So you need to stick with what that is. And then the last thing is towards the end of this experience is I got Renaissance. So I looked up Renaissance. What do I need to know about Renaissance? It is a rebirth, and it is all about a new era of art. And God was showing me this is what we're entering. We're just now entering this phase. It is the 17th right now that I'm recording this. It was about I knew when this happened was right before the 17th last month. And I said that on the 17th last month, it begins a new cycle between the 17th and 20th, particularly in those days. Now we're on the 17th of the next month, and there are 6 planets in Aries right now. And this was right before the Pisces moon. And Pisces is not only all about art, Pisces is all about letting go. It's the end of the wheel, the end of the cycle, where you let go of everything before you return back to God. The only thing that you can take with you is everything that you within. That's what you're bringing back to God. And now we have this 17th, this month later, this 6 planets in Aries, which is all about that rebirth, the new and the new spring and the rising of the phoenix right now. So this era is just now beginning. So don't lose hope. Don't think it's not worth it. The end of the cycle can feel very dreadful at times. We're watching everything fall away that once was. But again, a lot of those things, a lot of life as we knew it was created very unconsciously. And we have been taught that it is going to look like death, because that's what happens when we create unconsciously. Eventually it is going to die. And now we can all see that. A lot of those who grew up with very difficult childhoods have not known what it is like to create for yourself. And again, what I was being shown, what this conversation was about, was for me, instead of not just, and it's very hard to always take that in for those of us who grew up really fast, who always feel like we're cleaning up other people's messes. God is saying, no, you're doing it for you first. If you don't do it for you first, then it's not as important. So keep that in mind. And that's what Aries also teaches us. It's about that, independence, that identity at the core. Of course, it's of the heart, and we're giving for other people, but at the core, you have to be rooted into your true identity and do it for your soul and follow your soul map and what you came here to do. How do we know what we are creating? How do we know if it's going to be fruitful? This is the Orca, the womb protection oil. This is based on the fruits of the spirit. So the fruits of the spirit is what creates abundance. So remember when I said that there's a difference between creating with lust and with love. Now, what happened in the past has already happened. Again, we were in the tail of the dragon, so don't worry about that. Now you have gathered all these fruit seeds. But one way that I learned to gather these seeds of self-control, for example, that is one of the fruits of the spirit, is I spent over half my life in a relationship, but always without birth control. So in order for me not to conceive, I had to go out of my way to do that. That took a lot of self-control. So it is building and creating with these fruits of the spirit. That is what leads to abundance. And another really important part of this message, when someone is sent to me for prayer or any other reason, I am not planning on it. I don't foresee that happening until it happens, and they're not planning on it either. Only something much, much higher could possibly arrange that. Only something much higher could plan that. So when it looks like, and you can't foresee in your vision that there's nothing out there and you're not going to get the help you need when you need it, God is saying that yes, it is out there. You might not see that right now. Just focus on following your soul map.